Welcome to this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast, where we look forward to shaving every day. Welcome to episode 61 of the podcast. My name is Rick Ruiz. I'll be your host today. Today, we've got a bunch of letters. I've gone and done some more stuff with a straight razor. So, a straight razor Antics again. Let's see. We've also got a soap that I've been trying out, Figaro shaving cream. It's from Hungary. Not many people know about it, but I got a hold of some, and I decided I would test it out and let you guys know about it. Would you like to have something unique, beautiful, and useful? Would you like to support the Brush and Soap and Blade podcast? I'm currently working on the final details with a true artist to make this dream possible. As soon as I tell you who it is, you'll be stunned. As soon as I tell you the deal, you'll be stoked. We can't let the cat out of the bag just yet. Just a few more weeks so we can get the details finished up for you. Start saving your pocket change. You will want to get in on this. And with that, let's get on with this show. After my offer a couple of weeks ago, I got a letter from Joe. Hey, Rick, thanks so much. I got the Martin DeCandre sample last night, and I've got to say, it was a really great shave. The protection, glide, and cushion was great, with a really nice post-shave, too. I'd say the performance is on par with How to Grow a Mustache products, which are my go-to soaps most of the time. Regarding smell, I thought it had a very nice, subtle scent. Actually, the scent kind of reminded me of Taylor of Old Bond Street, Mr. Taylor's, which I also really like the scent of. Not sure if you get that as well, but that's what my nose picks up. But of course, the elephant in the room, price, is just that one factor that gets in the way for us married guys. Oh well, I still thoroughly enjoyed the shaves and look forward to several more with the sample. I very much appreciate your kindness in sending it to me, and I'm going to be sending you a sample that I told you about as well. Well, I guess that's all for now. As always, love the show. Talk to you later, Joe. Well, Joe, first off, glad you enjoyed the sample. Glad it worked out for you. I do know that it is expensive. Now, as far as whether or not that I get anything from it, well, as of the recording of this letter here, I still haven't tried it. I know. I'm just, I'm a slacker, I guess. I don't know. But I haven't tried it yet. I still have it, just haven't given it a go at this point. So, don't know. Also, the Taylor of Old Bond Street, Mr. Taylor's, I don't know what that smells like either. Never tried it. So, anyhow, I greatly appreciate the letter and hope you're enjoying the winter down there in Arizona. I also got a letter from Mark. He sent me a link to a YouTube video, and in the YouTube video, there is first part. The best part I thought of the YouTube video is the beginning sections of it were actually the instructions that used to come with the razors for the usage, how you load blades, how you do the different things. You twist open the cap, pop the blade on, and then go from there. So I thought that was really, really cool, and really enjoyed that. Now, the point that was being made in the video was that the Gillette slide, the shaving on the diagonal, is really nothing new. It's been around for a long time, and in fact, it's been around before Gillette actually started, using it. It was back from the single-edge days and even some of the straight razor days. So the Gillette slide, or the cutting at the diagonal, has been around for a long time, Gillette, if nothing else, was a company that excelled at marketing. So even the fact that they have something called the Gillette slide for a technique that was used way back when a good bit, well, guess what? Marketing at its finest. Anyhow, Mark, thank you very much. For anybody that's interested, I'll go ahead and link up to this YouTube video on the blog there and in the show notes. And you too can take a look at this. Now, again, like I said, for me, one of the best parts of the whole thing was the fact that the beginning of it was the instructions that came with the various razors. I thought that was really, really pretty cool. I also got a response from on Twitter from Darkbulb. He wrote me, he said, in regards to your latest podcast, and that would be last week, according to a study, 65% plus of males aged 18 to 30 in California who would not be able to change a tire. Really? Wow. I wrote him back. I said, that's just sad. It's just really sad. And he said, yeah, it's apparently they did a study, and most of them, at least the majority of them, thought that it was something that was dirty and beneath them. Well, that doesn't say much for some men or young men or, well, people. I mean, if you think about it, to a certain extent, we're victims of our own success. Because it's only because we're successful and have the monetary wherewithal to have other people do things for us that we have the ability to say, you know what, I don't want to do this. I want somebody else to do this. I would much rather have, Joe down the street come and, take care of these issues for me. It's only because we're there. But at the same time, we don't have, we're losing something. We are losing the ability to go out and do, and it's just, well, it's sad. It is truly sad. I hate to see it. I know it's happening, but I definitely hate to see it. Anyhow, I enjoyed the conversation with Darkbulb on that one. It was, when I first read it, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Somebody actually did a study on this? And in addition to all the fun that me and Darkbulb had lamenting on the demise of men, especially, well, out there in California, he also sent me a link to a YouTube video. This one's pretty good, and so I'll throw this link up there as well. But it is a gentleman who basically took a stick and attached a double-edged razor blade to the thing and essentially made a homemade shavette and then proceeded to shave with it. Now, the whole time I'm looking at this going, you're kidding me, right? But nah, he shaved with it and didn't do too awful bad. So hopefully I won't ever get that desperate. I have a hard enough time with straight razors. But it is a fun video to watch. You're almost watching in anticipation. Is it going to be a car wreck? Is it going to draw blood? Is it going to be one of those? Anyhow, I'll put the link up to it. Thanks, Darkbulb. So I got a message on Facebook from Joshua. He wrote me, "Hello, Mr. DeWeese." Okay, I'll accept that, but golly, it makes me feel old. Okay. That's what my kids call me. That's what my scouts call me. If I know somebody old enough to be shaving and they call me that, I feel like the old gray-haired grandpa sitting in the corner. Anyhow, I digress again. He says, I just finished listening to your podcast about creeds, and I have to say that has been my favorite podcast of any I have listened to date. You are truly talented at what you do. Thank you for making them up, and keep up the good work. Well, I wrote back to Joshua, and first off, I said, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it, because I do really enjoy making these things. And like I pointed out on several occasions, I really do wonder where some of the inspiration for some of my, talks, rants, whatever, where that actually comes from. And it's rather interesting. It's like I've said on a couple of other occasions, it's almost like the good Lord intended for me to do this, because inspirations will pop up in the weirdest places. In fact, today I had a guy come into my office, and next thing you know, we're talking about all kinds of stuff, and I'll probably talk about that later on in the episode, just because, I find it just fascinating. And so Joshua went on to say, when he answered me back, he said, because I asked him, I said, what do you like? And he said he liked the stories and, the letters with the stories. And quite honestly, I like them too. I truly do enjoy getting letters from you guys. It makes me, first off, it makes me know that there's people out there listening, and which is always helpful, because just out of habit from a long time ago, I don't look at stats. I don't look at, how many people I've got following me, this or that. I'll jump into Facebook from time to time, or Twitter. I was on Twitter a good bit, but then I kind of got sucked into the Facebook thing, and so now I try to kind of split my time between that and Instagram and Twitter, and just back and forth. And so I try to keep up, but it really it's really nice when I get messages and letters from you guys to let me know that, first off, that you like the show, but more importantly, when I hear from you and I hear your stories, because to me, and again, this is just me, sometimes I think, who in goodness name wants to listen to a guy talk about shaving? And, and I try to make it fun. I try to make it enjoyable. But in my mind, anyhow, your letters are part of what makes this show what it is. And so I do greatly appreciate them. If you have any letters, if you want to get in touch with me, you can send me an email at brushandsoapandblade.gmail.com. You can send me a message on in Twitter at Brush and Blade, or you can find me on Facebook under the name of Rick DeWeese. And I don't hide very well. I'm pretty easy to find. And but yeah, if you've got a letter and you want me to read something, one of your stories about your parents, your grandparents, aunts, uncles, people in your life that have, you learned about shaving, style, neatness, what it is to be, a man or a woman for that matter. Those are the rich history that we have as a community that a lot of us take for granted. A lot of us think, nobody wants to hear about that. And that's not true. People are, especially now, there's kind of this thing going on in this country where there's a lot of angst and strife and everything else, and quite honestly, people are looking for those stories. People are looking for that time, that sense, that what it was like, and how when we were there, how people acted, so that maybe we can recapture just a little bit of that. That we look back with nostalgia and think maybe in certain aspects it was a better time then. And, part of that is, when you look back, people didn't shirk from work. People went for it. People jumped out there and, not rudely, but essentially elbowed each other out of the way trying to get to it. Nowadays, it's not necessarily the case. In the face of adversity, a lot of people just sit down. Where, when you listen to some of the stories from back when, that wasn't the case. In adversity, you always did something. You may not have gotten it right, but you did something. You didn't just sit there and let the adversity envelop you. you fought your way out of it. You worked your way out of it. You used your cognitive abilities to get out of it. And that's something that we need to encourage. Because I'm not going to say we've lost it, but in a lot of cases, people don't understand that. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But Joshua, thank you very much for the note. It has inspired me to talk about the things that I'm going to talk about in this episode. And for that, I thank you. And like I said, sometimes I don't know where this inspiration comes from, and sometimes the very fact that somebody drops me a message or something like that is, in fact, what inspires me. So thank you for helping make this show what it is. I got a letter from Mark. He titled it, "A Gentleman in America." Benjamin Franklin once commented on what our new nation would require for gentlemen. To be a gentleman in England only required to own land and not to work. In America, to be a gentleman required personal responsibility, industriousness, and an expression of character. In America, I have seen farmers, merchants, and laborers that I would call a gentleman sooner than the lords and titled of England, he once said. I want to thank you for the context you put in my letter. Either you're a gentleman or you're not in your past show. I played it for family members, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. The chair at Independence Hall, where the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution was drafted and where the President of Congress sat, had a curious sun on it. Benjamin Franklin said, after the Constitution was drafted, "We will no longer be able to depend on a king or pope to have our people remain civilized and not barbarians." Curious, the word barbarian comes from the Latin meaning unshaven. He looked at the sun carved on the presider's chair and remarked, "Like our nation, I wonder if that is a rising or a setting sun." After your podcast on Do You Have a Creed, I am asking the same question. From one gentleman to another, cheap salsa bowl regards, Mark. Mark, as I'm going to tell you in this podcast, for greater society, yes, I'm a tad concerned. For the community of wet shavers, by the very nature of what they are and what they do, I'm a little less so. Thank you, sir, for your letters. I have enjoyed reading them, especially bringing up Benjamin Franklin. I do really enjoy. It took me one time, I think it took me almost 2 years, part-time, when I had a break now and then, to read through his autobiography. But it was a great read. Thank you for bringing back that memory. I do appreciate it. So one of the shaving creams that I have been trying this week is Figaro from Habzo in Hungary. This is their foaming shaving cream. It comes in a green tube, and let's see, it is made in it's coming out of Budapest. All right, so looking up the website and translating via Google Translator the Hungarian description, it appears to say that the Figaro is recommended for all those who love the classic way to shave, and due to the ingredients, the shaving is easier, and special skin-friendly active ingredients moisturize the skin. Pleasant smells can remain long after the shave. And, okay, you know what? Truth in advertising. This has been a very nice soap. It lathers very well. It does give a very good skin feel afterwards. Of course, when I use my straight razor, it's, different. But when I use the double edge in the mornings with this stuff, it's very nice. Although, and I don't know if it's this stuff or if it's something else or if it's the blade or what, I'm getting a bit of a reaction, just breaking out just a little bit, and I don't know if it's the aftershave or what. I don't know exactly what it is, but this stuff reminds me a lot of the Spike. It's got kind of that herbal barbershop smell to it. But it does have a very good skin feel, and I've really enjoyed it. It lathers very, very nicely. You don't need much at all, and doesn't matter which brush I'm using. Any brush that I use does a very good job as well. So I may have to switch back just for a while to something that's kind of a known entity, like the Mitchell's Wool Fat or the I might have said Michael's Wool Fat last time I said the name. It's Mitchell's Wool Fat. Anyhow, I might have to switch back to it or maybe to Katie's Bubbles or something just to see if it's the soap that's causing the reaction that I'm having, or if in fact it's the straight razor or the blade and the double edge, or something like that. But the soap itself, if I'm having a reaction to the soap, quite honestly, I'm going to be sad, because I have really enjoyed this soap, and I would enjoy continuing to use it. Like I said, it lathers very, very nicely. It's got a very nice smell. It doesn't matter which brush I use. I've used the Badger, the Boar, the Plisson, so it lathers well with everything from synthetic all the way to natural fibers without issue. I'm using a consistent 1 teaspoon of warm water with it, and that seems to do a very good job. Especially with the Plisson, when you swirl it initially, it's just normal, but then you go to paintbrush with paintbrush motion with your brush, and it's like you're slapping on paste. It's by the time you get done, you look at it and remember when you were in grade school and they had tubs of paste, and you unscrewed the lid and the brush was attached to the lid, and the paste that was in there was just thick and just, creamy white, and this consistency of, kind of like Jell-O almost, until you actually stuck the brush in it, and then it was just like, big, thick. So it reminds me kind of like that. Now, when I put it on, it's not quite that thick, but it's got the same look to it. Maybe not quite the same consistency, but it's got the same look. I mean, this is a thick, luxurious lather. It really is. I was really impressed with that. Again, the smell, it's got kind of an herbally smell to it, an herbally flavor to it, if you will, very much like Spike. And, I really enjoy my Spike. And so, the Figaro, coming out of Hungary, I really enjoy it too. It's been very nice, and so far it's done me well. Again, like I said, if I'm having a negative reaction to it, I will be sad. But I've spent a lot of time out in the weather. It has been cold here in the South the last couple of weeks. And this last Friday, I spent a good bit of time at a football game with my face exposed to the windy weather for a good long time, and I could feel it drying out. But it was worth it, because our football team is undefeated, and the last time that they did that, it was 1979. So it's been a few years since they did that, so it was well worth going out there and watching them. And I enjoy high school football. It's an interesting thing. It's an interesting phenomenon when I watch football games. When I watch like the NFL, professional football, it's like, okay, these guys make big bucks. I understand that, but a lot of them, they're prima donnas. They've got all these contracts and sponsorships, and they're making money hand over fist. Okay, it's depending on the game. It can be somewhat exciting, but it's just to me it's a follow the money deal. It really is. I mean, there are some players and games that I really enjoy, and don't get me wrong, I'm not disparaging the whole thing, but there are certain instances when it's like, I could take it or leave it. Okay, so then you shift from that to college football. Now, I really like college football. I mean, those guys go out, they do a good job, it's more exciting. It's more, for me, it's more thrill packed. It's closer to me to what the game should be, just a bunch of guys going out there and having a good time and having some fun. Yeah, granted, it helps when there's 60, 70,000 people in the stands, but yeah, it's a little bit better. Now, the ultimate for me is to go down to the high school level and watch a high school team, especially one that is good, to see young men at that age who have learned through practice and, with the discipline that they are able to have at that age, that, you don't quit, you keep on going. Even when it looks bad, you keep trying, because you never know. I mean, there was a couple of games, and you want to talk about Heart Attack City. Watching a high school football team take away victory from the other team in the last 13 seconds of the game. Holy cow. That's just good stuff. And so anyhow, that could be part of my my skin problems as well, is being out there rooting on my team and having a good time in the wind and cold and even a little bit of rain, and just essentially getting chapped face. I got back in the truck and I could feel it. I told my wife, I said, I got to go home and put on some balm. I said, this is just, I can feel my face just going as the moisture is just sucked out of it. Oh, well, that's part of life, and, we're here to enjoy it, right? So anyhow, it turns out that again, going back to their website, Figaro has an aftershave, and they've got, the two types of creams. At least I understand that. There is one type that is a foaming, which is in the green tube, and then they also apparently have a brown tube, and I believe that's the non-foaming. So that would be interesting. I don't know what a non-foaming would. Now they say that non-foaming is for sensitive skin. It's friendly pH recommended. So, okay, maybe. But at the same time, I mean, you want a lather, right? At least I do. So, but it is a shaving foam that they have that is for sensitive skin, and it doesn't foam, and you apply it to your fingertips, and it's just you then apply it to your face, and life is good. At least that's what the website says. So it's interesting searching around on a foreign language website when you don't speak the foreign language. It's one of those things. I enjoy it. It's fun. It's part of the adventure, kind of go searching and feel like, a treasure hunter or something. Anyhow, that is my report on the Figaro shaving cream. I've enjoyed it. Like I said, if I'm having a reaction, I'm going to be sad because I really like this stuff. And it may be kind of like I do with sandalwood, where I'll put it down and maybe come back to it in a month or two and see if I still have an issue, if at all. But, for the last week, it's been full steam ahead and good stuff, and have truly enjoyed it. So there you go. If you happen to run into some, don't be scared. Go ahead and pick it up. You might like it too. So while everybody else today has elected to vote, I elected to shave. Well, and I voted too. But I was playing around this afternoon, this evening, I suppose, with a straight razor. My straight razor that I just got back from honing. So I sent my straight razor out to none other than Bill Segrans. And he's up in New York, and does an excellent job. And he had the way that I found out about him is I had bought a strop, of all things, from Chris Bailey over there at Shaving Evangelist, traditional Shaving Evangelist, and he had included in that one of the gold dollar razors. And this gold dollar razor happened to have been honed by Bill. And Bill, when he saw that Chris had put this thing up for sale, had mentioned on the posting that anybody that would buy this, he would throw in a free honing. Okay, so I had his number, and I had his name, and okay, now I've got someone who I can send something to, and I've got a contact. Okay, all good. So life goes on. I get distracted, like I always do, squirrel. Life goes on, and I find myself at, the jockey lot, which is Southern for flea market. But anyhow, I'm at the jockey lot, and I find this straight razor. Now, I don't know a lot about straight razors. I don't know if they're good, bad, vintage, otherwise. I mean, I don't know. So I picked this thing up, and this thing has some black Art Nouveau handles that are really good shape. The scales are in really good shape. And the blade on it is it says A. Newton and Sons, made in Germany. So I figure, okay, it's probably not, an exquisitely expensive blade or anything like that, but it looks to be, it's got some age on it. It might be from the 20s or 30s or something like that, and back then, heck, it probably didn't cost but $1 or something. I don't know. But it was a good deal. I got the razor for $20. Okay, so for me, $20 for a straight razor that looks like this, that's in pretty decent shape, I like that. So I went ahead and picked it up. So I pick it up and I take it home, and of course, being the person that I am, I at least had to try to put an edge on it. Needless to say, I failed miserably, and it's just one of those things, I keep trying, I figured, well, okay, it's $20 blade, if I screw it up, but at the same time, I've got to try. Anyhow, I after a while of playing around with it and I could get it to shave, but it was tugging and pulling and it was just, not good. So I decided, you know what? I've never sent anything out to a hone meister, to a hone master. I have never sent a blade to anybody. So I decided that I would send this blade out to Bill, and I contacted him, and I said, hey, I got this blade. I want to send it to you. And he said, sure, no problem. And he gave me a price, and he gave me his address. And then, of course, being me, I just didn't do anything with it. I sat on it and sat on it and sat on it. It was a good while later. I finally got the thing in the mail, and I said, Bill, I've got it. It's on its way. And he said, okay. Now, unbeknownst to me at the time, okay, he had been doing a special for veterans. And, he offered it to me. He said, well, are you a veteran? I said, yes. He said, well, I've got a deal going on that I'm honing for free, and all it'll cost you is shipping. Okay, so first off, that's a stand-up offer. I don't care who you are. However, when I sent it to him, I didn't send him looking for anything. I just wanted my razor honed, and I was more than willing to pay a fair price for that service. So what I did is I told him, yes, I'm a veteran, but no, I don't want the offer. Go ahead and, use it for somebody else's honing, whatever, and carry on. So we agreed on a price, and I sent it on to him and paid him. Well, actually, I didn't pay him because he doesn't take payment until after he's done. Another stand-up thing. So anyhow, I sent it to him, and he got it, and a couple of days later, I got a note from him saying, hey, it's done. I'm like, holy cow, that's quick. Now, he had promised fast service, but we're talking like 2 days. So, needless to say, I was then watching the mailbox closely. And eventually, the blade did arrive. In fact, it arrived on a Friday. And, of course, me being me, I ran upstairs, and as soon as I had a free moment and, got in the door and put my stuff down and took off my coat, okay, now I have a free moment, I ran upstairs, whipped out the straight razor back from the honing, and proceeded to inspect and look at it, and it was really, really a nice job. I mean, it has a very nice bevel on it, very nice edge. And so I said, okay, let's go ahead and give this little monster a try. So I lathered up and proceeded to shave with it. Now, one thing that I have always commented on is that, for me anyhow, it is so much easier to shave with a straight razor than a shavette. And it's mainly because, for me, I think, it's the edges of the blade. You've got the long section of the blade, but then you've got that edge, and those edges dig and cut and nick. Now, this razor is not, it's got a bit of a point. It's not terribly rounded on the end. It's got a bit of a point. So I do tend to have to be careful with it. And I knew that. And I didn't cut myself, at least not the first time or the second time. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Anyhow, so I'm using this thing, and it's incredibly sharp. And suddenly I realize, in all honesty, I realize what I have been missing in my straight razor shaves. And specifically, what I have been missing is a sharp blade. Imagine that, shaving with a dull blade just isn't as pleasurable as shaving with a sharp blade. Duh, who'd have thunk it? Anyhow, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. So here I have a sharp blade in hand, and shaving away, doing a wondrous job, and I realized that, well, it's leaving me with an odd feeling on my face, on my skin. What I noticed, okay, is that, so I lather up, I wet my face, prep my face, lather up, all right, shave, and everywhere that the razor has been, where there's no longer any shaving cream, my skin is incredibly dry. Well, like it's been scraped clean. Well, duh, that's what I've done with the razor. Okay, so perhaps it's an angle thing, but, I'm getting a good shave, but at the same time, my skin is dry. It's taut, it's dry, and that, I found that to be, well, unique. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't, and again, if anybody's got any ideas as to why this is happening, please let me know so that I can, well, first off, learn, and more importantly, inform others. But for me, at this point, the surprising factor was that as I was shaving, it was, causing not irritation, just dryness, which was, again, very curious. And then I started to think, okay, maybe this is where, the oils and things come in, the pre-shave oils and stuff. Maybe that's why people use them. I don't know, My brain is just sitting there spinning while I'm shaving and paying attention and trying not to cut myself and, all those other things that I have to, well, do. But all in all, it was for the areas that I have that I can easily go against the grain, okay? If I shave with the grain or cross grain, it doesn't do the first pass, okay, with, or, kind of with the grain, and then it's like, all right, it's okay. And then for me, when I'm using a double-edged, the next pass will usually be against the grain, and it's just the way I do it, and I'm used to it. If it doesn't work for you, don't do it, because it can cause irritation and all that. I know that, but I've been doing it for years, and it doesn't really bother me. So, in certain spots, I can do that with a straight razor without hacking myself up, and it works okay. Of course, I have the difficulties, underneath my jawline, not necessarily my chin. I can sort of kind of get that okay, but more, as it goes from chin into jawline type stuff, and so I've got some technique issues that I need to work on, but all in all, it didn't matter where I shaved with this stuff. I had that dry feeling. So then I thought, okay, maybe it's the soap. So the next day I come home from work. Now of course I shave in the morning too, and then so I'm doing shaving twice a day just because, well, it's fun. It's interesting. It's a curiosity thing, and I know curiosity killed the cat, and it'll probably be the death of me, but that's okay. But that's what I'm doing here. I'm curious. I'm having fun. I'm experiencing. I'm learning. Imagine that, learning in this day and age without having to watch a YouTube video. Is that even possible nowadays? Anyhow, so I go on. And the next day, and I change soaps. I go back to the Michael's Wool Fat soap because for me, that was a very, very nice, thick soap. Cushiony, great lather, a lot of glide. I thought, okay, yeah. It was a little bit better. A little bit. But it still had that dryness. And it was just, it's a curiosity for me. And again, it may be something I'm doing. I don't know. Now, okay, I was about to say I'm a noob at this, but I got to admit, okay, the word noob, I could go off on a rant on that all on my own. All on its own. It's just, that word bothers me. It really does. It is. In my book, I don't care if you've never shaved before in your life. It just bothers me that somebody would call somebody else a noob. It's just, it doesn't sit well with me. It just never has. It's just, oh well. I digress. Anyhow, so I tried the Michael's Wool Fat. And that was better. And today, I tried Katie's Bubbles because that, for a single-edge shave, that has always been a very, very nice, luxurious, thick lather. And, of course, it did the same thing. And, of course, I'm beating my face up here. I'm shaving twice a day, once with a straight razor. And the blade that I've got isn't the best blade in my double-edged razor. So, my face is suffering. I get a little razor burn. And, of course, then I have to cut myself. So then, of course, I get done. I use a little bit of the Illume, and I put it on, and, of course, where I cut myself, it stings a little bit more. Not as bad as a styptic pencil, but it still stings. And I'm just sitting there looking at myself going, okay, what the heck are you doing? And I just can't help it. It's like this is fun. I'm learning. I'm using. It's like, I sent this thing off so I could use it, and now I'm using it, and I'm enjoying it so much that I don't want to put it down. And man, this is cool. And those kind of things. Yeah. But anyhow, I enjoy my straight razor here, and of course I've seen others that have these same ornate plastic handles on them, and the other ones, they're not Newman & Sons blades that say made in Germany. They say something else, and it's like, I don't know, maybe there's a con artist out there, or these things are made in Pakistan or China, and they just pump them out to make them look like they're from the 20s, and really they're from like yesterday. I don't know. But the steel seems to be good, and it seems to be holding an edge very, very nicely. And so from that aspect, I like it. I also know that I have in total for all my straight razors, I've got this one, I've got the Gold Dollar, I've got my case, and then I've got another one, and I believe it's a thick blade. It's huge. But I love the feel of just holding that thing, but the scales on it are wrong. The scale, I don't know why somebody would do this, but the scales that somebody put on it are for a blade that's like half an inch shorter. It's really bizarre. So I'm going to take those off, and I'll make up a set of wood scales for that, or maybe a plastic, or something like that. I'm trying to decide just how to do that. What material would be best. I've thought about Kevlar, kind of a mix with the old and the new. I've thought about something like a simple plastic, an acrylic, Lexan, but that would probably scratch, a polycarbonate of some kind. Yeah, there's all these possibilities, and then I have all this wood that's lying around. I've got some holly that is absolutely gorgeous. If it's treated nicely, it looks almost like ivory when it's done. Holly is interesting stuff. If you cut it with steel, it'll turn black. It'll darken up, and the way to get that darkness out of it is with lemon juice. But if you do that and then you treat it nicely and don't use it looks like old ivory. It's kind of a white yellowish. It is really nice wood, and it's just durable as anything. I made a knife handle out of it for one of my knives, and it's really kind of cool. Of course, just to be different, I made the knife and I blackened it. I darkened it with some gun blue, so I've got this dark blue knife with this kind of light wood handle. It's my ninja knife. But anyhow, again, I digress all over the place, and so those are kind of my adventures so far with this straight razor. I really like it. Bill did a great job. The service that he gave me was outstanding, and so Bill, if you're listening, thank you very much. And if you, I'll put a link up to his Facebook page or something. I'll find some way to link to him, hopefully in the show notes. And I've been really impressed with this. I'll probably send my case next, and then once I get the handles made, the scales made for my other one, I'll probably send it. Now, just so you know, again, I have tried. I actually bought some lapping films, and I bought some lapping film from the Rick Boone. And I tried, and because this blade, and this is the one that I tried it on, didn't have a good bevel on it, I wasn't getting anywhere with the lapping film, and so that's one of the reasons that I sent it up for honing. It's like, okay, I know from looking at this, because I'm looking at it under a jeweler's loop and everything, it's like, okay, I'm not doing any good here. So send it off. So Rick had asked me a question on, he'd sent me a quick message and said, hey, how are the films treating you? Well, the films are treating me fine. It's just that what I'm trying to do on there is, scrape away Mount Rushmore or the equivalent with a nail file, essentially. It's my fault. I mean, I know that. Oh, well, sharpening adventures, it's it's one of those things, My wife just thinks I'm up here doing a podcast. Really, I'm sitting here for hours trying to figure out how to make something sharp. It's pitiful. But hey, it's okay because, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And, there's many guys out there that hone. I mean, there really are. It's not, I don't imagine it's too terribly difficult to find them. Now, to find one that you like to work with and that does a good job for you, depending on your personal preference, that may be the challenge. But there are guys out there that will hone. And I would be more than willing, I think, especially for a blade that, like $1, one of the golden, what are they? The gold blades or whatever, the gold dollar blades, or, something that you pick up at a flea market or a jockey lot for not too much. As you're trying to find these guys, yeah, I have no problem sending something to them. Yeah, see how they do with it. I mean, okay, so if you're out a few bucks, you're out a few bucks, if things go south on you. But I doubt they will because, quite honestly, for the most part, the guys that I've dealt with in my dealings in the shaving community have been, pretty upstanding people. Maybe I've gotten lucky. I don't know, but it's been my experience. So I would not hesitate. Now, if it was a, $700, $800 custom blade, yeah, I might have a little trepidation. I understand that, but mine are not of that caliber by any regards. Hell, my face isn't even worth that much money. Oh, jeez. They're beautiful to look at, and I am so happy that people out there are able to buy those and that the vendors who make them are able to sell them. Please don't misunderstand. They are truly, truly works of art, and I do appreciate them. I really do. It's just I can't afford them, and they're not for me, and if I had one, hell, I wouldn't know what to do with it. I just sit there and look at it like, okay, I'm never going to touch that thing because I might mess it up. I don't want to put any fingerprints on it. I want it just, it would just sit there. and I don't do that with my stuff. I use it and just... it gets abused, and I use it and, enjoy it. Man, that's just what I do. Anyhow, that is my story so far with my experience with my straight razors. So far, I truly have enjoyed this journey. I look forward to continuing. There are certain things, you watch videos and things like that. I still can't get over the face feel kind of thing. One day I'll figure that out. But for right now, I'm still working at it. I'm still experiencing. It is nice to know, though, that I'm doing something that has been done for millennia, centuries at least, with these style of blades, and that I can do it without hacking myself up. So that's I put a star in my corner for that. Put a little star on the report card because I'm getting better. I really am. I'm getting better. I feel much more confident at it than I was before. And to me, the big switch is getting rid of that dang shavette and getting a real blade in my hands. Anyhow, that's my straight razor antics that I'll talk about this week. Maybe I'll have more next time, or maybe I'll just lop off my ear. So as I alluded to earlier, a gentleman at work stopped in to, shoot the breeze. Well, no, we were actually discussing something that he had a question about, and that specifically was training. And what he was asking about is that in his current job, and he's been doing this job for many, many years, and he is very, very good at it. His job is risk analysis. And the problem that he's facing is that risk analysis means that you have the ability to think critically. What do I mean by that? You have the ability to look not at just what is laid out in front of you, but the ability to kind of connect the pieces in the background to figure out, well, okay, yeah, this doesn't work, but what makes it work, and what are the possible things that could influence that? And are they all working? And if they're not, what are the things? And it's almost a troubleshooting method. Now, for me, I understand that well because I spent a good bit of my life being a troubleshooter. And essentially, the lessons that I have learned in that occupation have fared well for me because I use them now in business and in just about everything else that I do. It's very easy for me to look around and say, okay, what's broke? How did it break? How do we fix it? And so that's kind of where I'm at. But the other thing that I've had a lot of experience in is training. And one of the things that gets people in trouble, not intentionally, please, it's not like they go out there thinking, yes, I am going to mess this up. It's not like that. What people do, especially parents do this a lot. I'll just go ahead and say it. I have done this a lot as a parent. We assume, partly because we're right in the middle of the situation, and it's just completely surrounding us, and to us, the answers, the solutions, the bits and pieces are absolutely, obvious to the most casual observer. Anybody should be able to figure this out. And when we're teaching, especially, in my case, sometimes younger kids, what I have to remind myself of is that they do not have the experience to even understand what it is I'm talking about. And that was the point that I was talking to this guy. What he was saying is that in his experience, what he has seen is a bit of a degradation in the ability of new guys coming in to that situation, to kind of a risk analysis situation. He was saying he's noticed a lack of the ability to think critically on a subject. Now, he said that they're very good at going and getting a book and looking at standards and saying, yes, this doesn't fit the standard and this is why, blah, blah, blah. But he said beyond that, they just don't have what it, and he said have what it takes, and that's not the sense that I want to get across. They don't have the experience to be able to think critically. If you think about it, in our public schools nowadays, we absolutely do not teach critical thinking. We teach, okay, this is the answer, this is always the answer, this will forevermore be the answer because this is what you need to put on your test in order to pass the test. We're teaching to the test. We don't necessarily ask these young people to figure out why it works like that. And because they don't have any experience with it, when they get out into the business world and into the industrial climate, they look around and they're lost, and they're lost from an experience level. For example, if you have a machine that does something, and all of a sudden it stops doing what it's supposed to do, nobody understands that, okay, the first thing you do is find out what it was trying to do or what it did last, what it's supposed to do next, what are the things that allow it to do that, and are any of those things broken? They literally don't know how to walk down that rabbit trail. And so essentially what they do is they just, well, for lack of a better term, sit down. They're being faced with adversity, and they don't understand what the next step is. They don't understand what they're supposed to do next. And even when you tell them, well, you'll just figure it out. Well, if they don't have the experience, then they're not going to easily figure it out, and they're surely not going to do it in a quick manner. And so one of the things that I did is I said, okay, you're talking about very complex processes. Why don't you start with something simple? And I held up my Zippo lighter that I happened to have in my pocket, and I said, a lot of them might not have ever seen one of these. I said, set that out in front of them and ask them for them to describe everything that can cause that Zippo lighter not to function correctly. And then all of a sudden I said, as soon as you do that, now what you're talking about is, okay, what's the specification? What's this thing supposed to do? And you open up that discussion, and then okay, well, now how does it work? And now you open up that discussion of, this is what it's supposed to do, this is how it works, and now you can start putting the pieces together to say, okay, if this isn't functioning correctly, at least now I have some basis of understanding to look at things and say, okay, how do I move forward? And the whole premise of the conversation at one point, he was saying, well, what we've done is we're now in a situation where we have, well, arrested development, and we'll just, as a company, we'll just stay there. And I said, no, we won't. We will degrade. And the reason that I said that is because, okay, so you have arrested development, which means one population of people has decided that, okay, this is the standard for work. This is what you're supposed to do. And the problem is that the next group of people come in that don't have the experience levels, that don't have necessarily the background in critical thinking, and they come in and they say, okay, we can't meet the standard as high as it is, so we're just going to sit here with status quo until something breaks, and then when something breaks, then we'll set a new standard, and the new standard is invariably going to be lower because they couldn't meet the old standard necessarily. I mean, when you look at perfection, nobody can meet perfection. So even if you have standards, you're probably only going to hit 95% of them. And so over time, you're going, as new people come in and set new standards, you slowly have a degradation. Okay, so what's the point of all this? The point of all this is when you're training somebody, when you're teaching somebody, when you're showing somebody how to shave, for example, with a wet razor, with in traditional shaving with a double-edged razor or a single-edged razor or a straight razor, they may not have the experience level to even have a clue what it is you're talking about. Keep that in mind. When you start talking about blade angles and gaps and exposures and all that, do they even know what any of that stuff is? When you talk about the different types of brushes and fibers and soaps and creams and the ingredients, and do they have a clue? Keep in mind, they're used to, in a lot of cases, of just pushing the button. And so what I was trying to explain to him is that you have, it's kind of a bell curve. You have the people who are not necessarily have the experience of critical thinking, and then you have the people who do, and they, at one time, they were probably pretty even. And now what's happening, at least in his mind, and I must say I don't necessarily disagree with him, is that the people who have that ability, that drive, that natural inclination for critical thinking, well, it's going down, and the people who have the knack, if you will, to, in the face of adversity, just sit, well, that's going up. And we do it at a societal level, too. I mean, if you think about it, if somebody in a grade school or in a high school, if you ask them, well, how's this student? Oh, well, he's a great student. Well, you know what that means? That means he sits there and he says the things that he's supposed to say, and he writes the things that he is supposed to write, but he doesn't necessarily have a clue as to how it got there or why it's that way. But from a teacher's aspect, he's a really good student. He doesn't cause any problems. He gets good grades. Voila, he's great. Meanwhile, you got the other kid over here. We'll call him Johnny because Johnny's always had a reputation. And Johnny over there, well, how's he? Well, gosh, he's a pain. He's constantly asking questions. He's never satisfied with the answers. He's constantly questioning authority and asking, why is it this way and why is it that way? He's just a problem. Think about that for a minute. The critical thinking that Johnny is doing, that Johnny is demonstrating, is labeled in most cases by most institutions, if you will, as a problem. And the solution to that problem is to beat it down and into submission to the point where the individual, when faced with adversity, just sits and does nothing. Okay, so, am I terribly worried? Well, for the population as a whole, yeah, I'm a little concerned. Now, for the population of the wet shaving community, not so much, and I'll tell you why. The population of the wet shaving community, by and large, has already taken that step to look around, think critically about what is going on and what they are doing in something as minuscule as shaving, and hopefully they have used that intuition, that ability to say, hey, there's something better over there, and I'm going to try it, and I'm going to figure it out, and then I may spread it around, I may keep it to myself, it's okay. But every time, every morning that I wake up and spend the time doing something that is outside of that norm, that is outside, that is asking that question, is this the best soap? Why is this not functioning correctly? Why am I getting razor burn? Is it my soap? Is it the blade? Is it my angle, my technique? That in and of itself is critical thinking, and you guys out there are doing it. Now, here's the question for you. Are you teaching it? Are you using every instance that you can to take your ability to think critically and pass it on to others, whether they be other adults or children? It doesn't matter. we need to wake up. We need to encourage critical thinking. It's really important. It'll make us better. It'll make us better as a community. It'll make us better as a society. It'll, in fact, make us better as a world population. We don't all have to agree, but at the same time, if we have the ability to think critically, we can make good arguments. Not arguments in fighting type arguments, but arguments to explain, to make others, or attempt to make others understand our viewpoint and our position on things. Is that not what we are supposed to do? Is the communication that we have as individuals relies on our ability to make those arguments, to be able to say, look, I don't think that bread turned out quite right because I don't think you used enough yeast. And the other person could say, no, I used enough yeast. What I didn't use is enough sugar. This is why sugar is important. You can have all the yeast in the world, but if you don't have enough sugar, it's not going to do much. Okay, who won that argument? Well, it depends. Do you know enough about the system to understand what the argument is? And in a lot of cases, again, the people in this community probably do. They probably go, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So it's kind of a double-edged thing. You have to both understand the systems that you're working with, whether they be as small as a Zippo lighter and as, potentially mundane as wet shaving, all the way up to, why isn't my car getting the gas mileage that it's supposed to get? Or why is my electric bill in my house larger than it has been? All of these things require a little bit of critical thought. So the question for you, and the question for me, and the question for everyone is, are you using your critical thinking skills? And more importantly, are you passing them on? Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to get us where we need to go. Well, that concludes this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you have some suggestions or would like a topic covered, drop me an email at brushandsoapandblade@gmail.com or give me a call at 864-372-6234 or contact us on Twitter at BrushnBlade. You can also visit us at our blog, brushandsoapandblade.wordpress.com. As always, we're available on iTunes and Stitcher.